Welcome to the Bagels and Breadsticks podcast. We're on episode 5 right now. I'm Richard.
I'm Logan.
And we're doing something a little bit different,
Yeah,
a little bit exciting today. We're actually going to be doing some live calling. Well, not live, but we're going to call some highlights from the semifinals of the two ATP 250 tournaments that happened this past week, then dive a little more into what carried on from the tournament, what takeaways we have from the tournament, and if it's still going on. We're doing this during the San Diego WTA 500 final between Swiatek and Donna Vekic. So we'll just see where things take us. But yeah, let's get right into it. With the first semifinal, Andrei Rublev versus Dominic Thiem. I think it's really great to see Dominic Thiem back. I know both Logan and I are big fans of Thiem, and after the unfortunate injury that he had, it's really good to see him back. And he's been playing really well. I mean, he had not the easiest of draws to get here, and he looks good, and that's honestly what's really nice to see.
No, yeah, it's fantastic to see him make a semifinal, like this again, and I'm super stoked to see what that kind of means for him along the lines of his recovery.
And and it's been interesting to see how much his game has stayed the same versus how much has changed since the injury. And you can see with a few of these points, it doesn't seem to have changed very much, and I mean that in the best way possible. I feel like he's still recovering. You can see that there's not as much now as there used to be, and that's obvious. That's evident, That could obviously be,
that. He still has great control.
His backhand still looks great. There's still there's still some heavy topspin, which means his wrist is being used pretty well, which is really hopeful for fans of his like us, because we know how much topspin he plays with, which is why he does so well on the clay. And to see he's still producing shots that require topspin, which means requiring his wrist, really shows a lot of hope for how his surgery's done. His ground strokes still look great. That's what I always loved watching about him, is how strong his ground strokes are. We look at this point right here. Nice spin serve. They called it out. That's my bad.
No, but it had good form though.
But still, it still looks, and that's a sad way to finish off a set, to on a double fault. That's not really how you want to end off a set. But point in case, his kick serves look great. I mean, look at that backhand. I mean, that backhand is something that I always loved about watching him play. Is it's so sharp and it's so strong.
It's very nice to see that it's still, sharp and very strong.
I was worried about if we were still gonna see him with that one-handed backhand coming back from his injury. It was possible he could have come back with two. I don't know if he would have done that. But
don't say that. He can't do that. But I was telling Richard, I was watching his 2020 highlight reel the other day, and it was just incredible, watching him at such a high level. And it's I don't know. It's very nice to sort of see him rip those kinds of shots again. I mean, that was a good shot for him.
That's something that you want to avoid when you look at playing against somebody like Andrei Rublev. You want to kind of try to avoid that forehand to the best of your ability, and that's something that we mentioned. Sebi Korda did well in the final. Spoiler. Sorry. Realized it after I said it. But
I'm sure they know.
Yeah, but I think to see Thiem do as well as he has, and honestly, you look at the level that he's playing at, and it's so impressive to see him back, because his injury was so difficult to overcome.
Yeah. I was speculating he would be top 3 and he wouldn't be 3 if he hadn't gotten injured.
No, I agree. I think...
Yeah, but hey, I mean, look at that. I mean, he still put up a really good fight against Rublev, even though he ultimately lost. And honestly, after everything, that's kind of all you can ask for, if anything.
But he looks good, and that's what matters. I'd love to see him come back to his former form. I would love to, because he's such an entertaining person to watch. Genuinely, he plays with so much passion. But let's just move on to the next semifinals. Sebi Korda versus Arthur Rinderknecht. Rinderknecht with a very impressive tournament. I mean, personally, when you look at the draws, I mean, that's not a name that really stands out to you to go as far as he did. But when you look at how he played, I mean, strong ground strokes from the baseline, really moving into his shots like he did right there. But Korda with a good response off the net. I mean, it's interesting to me because, I mean, also you look at how much Korda must have learned from his dad and the way he played, because his dad played in a completely different time for this sport where there was a lot more moving up to net. But a nice passing shot. That's something that we saw a lot as well from the final. I mean, some good passing shots up from when Rublev moves up to net, and you can see the same thing here when Rinderknecht goes up to net.
Oh.
That's really not what we wanted right now. But
oh yeah.
Hey, no one said this is going to be overly professional.
This is our first time trying this after all, and
we want to see. We want to see how things go, and if if things go well,
if this is something we can work
going
into our formula or not.
Some really good play from Korda, though. I mean, he's known really a lot for how well he strikes from the baseline, and that's something that's so important to today's game, moving well and also really attacking on from the baseline.
Yeah.
Rinderknecht did really well, did a really good job to set himself up, had a good approach shot, which is really important when you're moving up to net, is to have a really good aggressive approach shot that puts you in a position that you can attack from at net. Because coming up to net is really a lot about pushing forward and being aggressive and trying to finish off that point as quick as possible. And Korda right there with a really nice backhand down the line.
Right, we were talking about this, about a lot of players and sort of figuring out how to maneuver, like, coming up to the net, and how, like, some of them, like, have a lot of, like, trouble with that in these tournaments, I think. Especially in some of these highlights.
But Korda's so promising, and the way he played this week alone is so impressive, and
for sure.
I personally have a lot of hope that hopefully he can be the American that wins the Grand Slam. I mean, I think him or Taylor Fritz, just it's a matter of who does it first. I think if it's between the two, if they were both going to get one, I think Taylor Fritz would get one first, but I think it's undeniable that Korda will get one, because if he can continue the trajectory that he's been going at, he's been playing so well. Strong ground strokes from the baseline, really pushing his opponent, keeping him back. That was a nice change of pace. I mean, I feel like when you slice, you usually expect either a topspin or a slice back, so a nice change of pace. Not what Rinderknecht was probably expecting, which is why you do that.
Right.
If you look at Korda's body motion on this shot and that last shot, a lot of moving forward into the court, which is what's really important.
And he was doing a good job at pressuring his backhand during some of those exchanges.
And like we mentioned, Korda versus Rublev in the final. What did you think of that final?
It was interesting, actually. They focused a lot on Korda. In that finals thing.
In that first set, at least.
And No. What were you saying?
I was going to say a lot of rallies as well, which is really interesting when you compare it to the other final when we get to that tournament. There was a lot of rallies going on between Korda and Rublev, and what Korda did really well was to do his best to take away opportunities for Rublev to use his very weaponized forehand.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what you really need to do against someone like Rublev, who has such a strong forehand, is really try to tone back how many opportunities he's going to get to use it. So I think Korda did a really good job in that respect.
Yeah, he played tactician in that final.
But it's sometimes too much, because what Rublev also does really well is set himself up to use that forehand, forcing his opponent to hit to his forehand, and at the same time, even when he gets them in a backhand rally, he knows also how and when to move around the backhand to use his forehand.
To do an inside-out shot.
Which is really hard to play against, because when you get to a point when you're hitting such angles and you're hitting so consistently from backhand to backhand, Rublev has a very strong backhand, but He knows how to move around it and get to his forehand, which is easily his stronger shot. And when you get to a point where you're hitting backhand to backhand, you can kind of anticipate where that ball's going to go unless you can switch up the pace. And when you get Rublev to a point where he does move around his forehand, you think, hey, there's the open court, I can hit to it. But then you hit down the line, there's not as much angle, and Rublev is very fast and very quick, so he can get to the other side of the court pretty quickly because he's anticipating that shot. So it's difficult to play against someone like him who can move well and has one very strong side because of that. When he does move around it and he opens the court for his opponent, he's anticipating it, so he can get to the other side very quickly.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a good match overall from both of them. They both played really well.
I think it's a great example of when the score does not really show the outcome, like how good the match was.
100%.
And that often happens in matches across both towards the ATP and the WTA. A lot of times when you look at the score line, it doesn't reflect how close and how well both sides played. I think a really great example of that is when you look to the women's tour and you look at Swiatek versus Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. Swiatek won 6-love, 6-3, and generally it may feel like Coco just was not on the ball that day, but at the same time, it's just a testament to how well Iga played, because Coco did not play bad at all. It's just a testament to how well Iga played.
Exactly, you know.
So let's move on to this second tournament we have going on in Florence. So we're going to go over to Florence. First one, Felix versus Lorenzo Musetti. Musetti was very impressive in this match, genuinely, and he played so well this whole week. I love watching his backhand. He's got a really nice one-handed backhand as well. Nice drop shot. It's hard. It's hard to play an effective drop shot against someone that's so quick like Felix, but he did so well.
And those
to
shots,
push Felix back, make him think that he's going to hit strong, and then pull him right up close.
Yeah, 100%. No, I think it's like incredibly like valuable, like to learn how to sort of change pace in shots like that.
But it's also very important that you hit an effective drop shot, and that's
right.
And it's very hard to define what an effective drop shot is, but you want it to have little pace, good slice on it. Yeah. But it needs to be very close to net, because if it's too far into the service box, you're allowing too much of a window of opportunity for your opponent to get up there.
100%.
That was a great inside-out forehand from Musetti, very strong, and oh my goodness, again.
At least they're quick, man.
At least we're respecting our veterans here and our military personnel. But looking to what Felix does so well is his ground strokes are so strong. You look at that forehand, great positioning, great aggressiveness moving into the ball like he did even on that return right there. That's really what you want to see in a really strong and good return, is moving up into the ball, into the court, stepping in.
Yeah. Look right here, he's keeping him right in that corner.
Yeah.
And then he uses that as an opportunity to move up. It was really a deep shot.
It was a great shot from Musetti. Really great movement. Moved really quickly to get up to that ball. What you want if you're Felix, in my opinion, with that volley is you...
See, look, that's what we were talking about.
That wasn't enough pace. There wasn't enough pace on that ball. You really need to either finish it, you need to close it, or you need to just completely change pace. That kind of neutral ball is going to be too easy for Musetti to get there. That's what we mean. Perfect example. When
1 and 2.
You pushed him so quickly. You pushed your opponent so quickly to the back that you need to take advantage of that opportunity. If you have the opportunity to hit a very effective drop shot, you should 100% take that opportunity, because you have
make your
so
opponent
much.
Run.
Yeah, really make him run. There's so much court to cover, and if your opponent is so far back as Musetti was, then you really need to take advantage of it. What I love watching about Felix, when he has a really on return that sets him up really well. You look at that return, he's moving into the court, like I mentioned. That's really what you want. Great backhand on the line from Musetti. I think his backhand is so strong and his ground strokes are really good, but I think what's lacking at some times is the... I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes, but I think what's lacking for one is probably going to be experience.
Yeah.
He needs experience, but he also...
Ooh, that was dirty.
He lacks, I think, a certain wow factor. He's got really great ground strokes,
No.
but I think what lacks sometimes, and this is what happens to a lot of players and why they don't break into the top 100, because they're so good and so impressive, and if you watch the qualifiers of any major, you kind of sit there in awe of, like, how is this guy not ranked higher? He's so good. But then you look at what the guys at the top have compared to the guys down further at the bottom, towards the bottom of the rankings, and the guys at the top have such penetrative ground strokes, have such great strategic abilities when it comes to playing the sport. They know how to serve, where to serve, when to serve a certain ball. You look at Felix's serve down the tee right there.
100%. They're all tacticians.
To set themselves up to close out the point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sometimes, and that comes with experience. That's what sometimes the guys towards the bottom lack. And you look at wow factor and what makes a certain player a real wow factor. Sometimes it's the consistency aspect, like someone like Yannick Sinner. Sometimes it's the... How do you even put this? The versatility of someone like Novak Djokovic.
Yeah. Well, it's because I think experience sort of unlocks this ability to become a tactician, right? Because you're sort of used to the space that you can think more, and you can look towards these qualities that you have and sort of figure out how to use them to your advantage, right? And, you know, win more games.
Yeah. And looking to the second quarterfinal, semifinal, sorry. Really, really promising for these two. JJ Wolf, Mikael Ymer. Impressive. Really impressive. Wasn't expecting these two names again, just like what we said with Rinderneck, but very impressive week for the two of them. JJ Wolf gives me a lot of hope when it comes to JJ Wolf, because he's so good, and you kind of root for him as an American. Ooh. I mean, you love to see Americans. We said it last week with Tiafoe and Fritz. We're saying the same thing here with JJ Wolf. It's really great to see the Americans prosper and see success on tour. But he's up against somebody that's really tough to play, Mikael Ymer. Ymer kind of on and off. You talk about wishy-washy, and I feel like he's one of the names that could come to mind. Sometimes he comes up big, like here, where he makes semifinals of tournaments. But sometimes he comes up short, and it's kind of the up and down trajectory of, I feel like, a lot of the top 100 when it comes to the ATP Tour. They break through, they get their name out there, and then they kind of fall. And it just goes up and down like a roller coaster. But Ymer, very promising Swedish player.
Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't seen him, like, you know, consistently perform very highly at these kinds of, like, tournaments to sort of, you know, have that kind of faith in him for, you know, him to, like, get here all the time. But it's still really, like, awesome to see him sort of get here, you know.
Yeah.
You know, especially, like, he you know, flies the Swedish flag, and I don't really see a lot of, you know, players, right, these days.
Yeah. And he's got really great ground strokes, but I feel like they need to develop a bit more to get to a point where he can really prosper. But when his game is on, his ground strokes are so difficult to play against because he's really good at placing them where he needs them to be. But when you look at the same time someone like JJ Wolf, the strength that's coming off of his racket in this point alone, look at how strong his forehands are, even when he gets pushed back and then he comes up. Really, really great setup from him to put himself in a position where he can
He's
really
using his raw strength to put a lot of pressure into Ymer here.
He's got strong... JJ Wolf, I'm going to give him the same kind of comment I just gave Rublev, where he's strong on both ends. Both sides are very solid from him when it comes to his ground strokes from the baseline, and but it's just his forehand is so strong and so penetrative that it does so well to put himself in positions to close, like right here.
Yeah.
Strong forehand down the line puts Yamur on the ropes, pushes him back a lot, causes him to play a very defensive backhand that's really high, allows Wolf time to move up, finish the point. That's really what you want.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
In a forehand, the potential to set yourself up for just to set yourself up to finish the point.
Just something high pressure, weaponizable.
And so what did you think of JJ Wolf versus Felix?
Ooh. I thought that was a good game. I mean, it was JJ Wolf, we were talking about this a little before, was serving very well. We were talking about his service form. And basically, I don't know. I think overall it was a game of movement. There's again, we were talking earlier about moving sort of like transitioning from the baseline into the net, and Rublev did a good job of that at first. I don't know. It was a good match. I mean, Rublev won, but it was a good match.
You mean Felix won?
Oh, I'm so silly. I swapped them. Yeah, Felix won. But yeah, no, Felix just had more versatility in his shots, and I think was able to sort of run JJ around more. And
it's hard to play. Like I said, it's hard to play against someone like Felix
Right,
who moves very well.
Mm-hmm.
He's quick, and that's what I think characterizes a lot of the top players is they are quick, and that's what is really important when it comes to playing against someone with strong ground strokes. And not to discredit JJ Wolf, he did great.
He did.
But Felix's ground strokes always are so impressive because they're very sharp, and they're very strong, very aggressive. And like I said, when he's on, he's on. Yeah. And when, it's hard to play him when he's playing really well, and that's kind of a dumb statement, but I don't know how better to say it.
Well, yeah, we were coming into this, right? Like, JJ Wolf is playing very well. He's penetrating very well with his, ground strokes, and he's serving very well. But, I mean, Felix is doing all of that, and on top of that, he just has this crazy, solid movement down, that allows him to just kind of have really great coverage.
We talked a lot about tact, and that's something that really applied to Felix in that match, and the way that he set himself up and the way that he used his ground strokes to really put himself in good positions, that's what it came down to. That's what it tends to come down to, is a strategy. When to employ a drop shot, when to change the pace of a point, when to strike, how to open the court using angles. And that's something that Felix did well in his match against JJ Wolf.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, looking to the women's side,
right
Logan and I thought, hey, when we finish this segment, it'll still be going. Nope. 6-0. 6-love final set for Iga Swiatek. She wins 6-3, 3-6, 6-0.
Yeah, oh my god. No, we figured out how to pull that match up. And we were like, okay, we'll do these highlights first, and then we'll go over here because they'll still be playing.
So on record, with this match win, if I'm not mistaken, Iga Swiatek has now the most match wins in one season since 2016 with, I believe it's now 64, 65, which is phenomenal.
Dear Lord.
I mean, what does this tell us about somebody like Iga Swiatek? I mean, such a level of domination, but from what you have to say.
We looked at the points just a bit before starting this podcast, and I believe Ons Jabeur was at 4,000 something in second, and Swiatek was at 10,000. And the difference in that is insane. I don't know. She's just so far ahead of everyone else in her league right now.
Yeah, it's so uncommon that you have someone that has such a large gap in points, and I think we haven't seen something like that since Serena Williams. Genuinely,
I have not. No.
It's so impressive, and to think that I honestly partially blame this on, if blame is even the correct word for it, on the retirement of Ash Barty. I think Ash's retirement really put some pressure on Iga to perform and really live up to the number one ranking that she was inheriting. Mm-hmm. And I think that she's done just such a great job of living up to it.
She's handling that very well.
You look at this 2022 season, and it's all Swiatek. She has won the most prize money this season. She leads the tour in points. She is 8-9 in finals this year, which is so impressive. The only loss coming to Barbara Krejcikova in Ostrava last week. Mm-hmm. It's genuinely so impressive. I didn't expect this.
I didn't
from this year. I don't know. It's genuinely so impressive, and she won two out of the 4 Grand Slams. She's won 2 1000s this year. There's still one more to go next week. My goodness, it's going to. Oh my goodness. What is the name of the tournament? In Guadalajara.
Yeah.
So she still got another 1,000. Chance to bring that number up, but it's so impressive, genuinely, to see her play this well. It's really interesting because then you look at the other 2 slams, and it was Ash Barty and Rybakina. Rybakina, a name that we didn't expect, but my point of bringing that up is that if you asked me at the beginning of this year, I genuinely would have expected for you to tell me that, Ash Barty got 3. I would have predicted at the beginning of this calendar year, Ash Barty would have ended with 3 and Iga would have won the French Open. That was my genuine prediction. Uh-huh. Obviously, that was altered when Barty retired, but this year has been so interesting to watch from the outsider perspective of who rose to the challenge and who fell. And man, did Iga Swiatek really rise to the challenge.
Yeah, oh my goodness. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I was expecting for her to sort of like do well of the pool of female players sort of left after Ash Barty retired. I will, bias or not, and there's definitely a little bit of bias in here because I'm a fan, but I was kind of like hoping that she would sort of like do as well as she has. And so I guess it makes me happy sort of from that standpoint, but also kind of like on I don't know. It's just very interesting seeing this kind of different results in competition.
No, absolutely. And I think she's been so impressive. 8 titles in one season is really impressive because it takes a lot of work to get to that point. And
also we should mention in that tournament that she just won. She cleared off Goff and then Pegula like back to back. Yeah. And her game against Goff was 0-3. Was 6-0, 6-3.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
But it's 2 very hard matches,
100%.
2 very good and very difficult players back to back, which is a testament to
the ability to stay on top, with like
absolutely
in taking those games, it's just like, if anything, that's just like a sort of like a representation of just everything that's been going on, surrounding her this year.
But yeah, so this is, I believe, 64 match wins, which is the most in a single season since 2016. Just shows such a level of dominance. And again, if we're going to attribute this back to anything, I think it's going to be attributed back to her game style. It's so aggressive. She moves into the court so well. What's important to note is she has some of the best movement and footwork that I think we've seen for the women's tour in a while. Mm-hmm. And you look at any match of hers and really hone in on her footwork because it is a masterclass. The way that she positions herself for different shots coming in, the way that she's quickly able to move around the court, her court coverage is so good, and that's so important in today's modern game. That's a lot about, especially on the women's side, that's mainly focused on moving your opponent and I feel like probably longer rallies, potentially we could say less winners, less short points that are ended with winners, and longer rallies.
Yeah.
It's so important to be able to move and have good stamina, and Swiatek does that so well.
100%.
You added on to
yeah.
her aggressive gameplay, heavy topspin, especially on that forehand, really aggressive moves into the court when she hits.
Yeah, she's insanely good
taking
at
less
pacing the
time.
game.
Exactly. Taking less time from her opponent, knows when to, like you said, pace the point. She knows how to control, let's say it better, control the pace of a point.
Yes.
Which is really important.
Yeah, no, it's in I don't even know what else to say there. She's just like such a great all-around like player, and like it's like very hard to sort of like penetrate, a player that has stamina that's just like at that sort of tier,
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
But I think it's been a really interesting week. What's really interesting to me, there's been no changes in the rankings in the race to the tour finals on either side.
We still have the same 5 qualified on men's, and to my knowledge, we don't have any more qualified on women's. Do we?
I don't think so. On the men's side, we still have Alcaraz and Nadal, Ruud, Tsitsipas, and Djokovic. Medvedev really coming up clutch. Very strong performances in the past weeks. Really solidifies him to have a good chance to finish with a shot at the tour title, at the tour finals title. And Rublev with his win in Gijon, again, really helping his odds there. With Felix's win in Florence also moves him up to 7th place. I wouldn't necessarily say solidifying, because hopefully Taylor Fritz can still make a last minute dash, because it needs to be kept in mind that 8th spot currently held by Taylor Fritz will be lost
to Djokovic. Right, because he won a slam.
And so I think it'll be really interesting to see, because I think that foursome, and I'm going to include Hurkacz as well, make it 5, is going to be a really, really interesting race to the end. Who do you think is going to finish those last 3 spots?
I don't know. I mean, I've kind of regained a little more confidence in Medvedev, seeing his recent performance.
Yeah.
And of course, his point standing is, really high. So, like, obviously, I don't think the match is necessarily, the ranking, is necessarily, fought with him or Rublev. Rublev is really high up there. I don't know. Felix is performing well. I mean, Taylor Fritz will have to catch up. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because as much as I want to see Taylor Fritz in this, and as much as I have the confidence, seeing Felix perform like as well as he did in this last game kind of makes me, I don't know, think that he has the momentum to sort of stay there, if that makes any sense. So I think he could like hold this position at 7. I think he could. I think that's what I think.
What's difficult to tell is the fact that we still have a huge 1,000 coming up in Paris and a double 500 week. So
that's true. So this is like the beginning of the slope.
There's so many more opportunities. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many more opportunities, and it's going to come down to how they perform at Paris, I feel like.
Yeah, Paris is going to be huge.
Because at the end of the day, if Fritz wins or Hurkacz wins or even Jannik Sinner wins, that could be one last mad dash into the top 7. Same goes for Norrie or Krenia Busa. But I think what you also need to keep in mind is that making it to the quarterfinals and semifinals can do the same effect and solidify the spot in the tour finals for somebody like Medvedev or Rublev, who's already in there, just needs to hold on to that position. I think with 3 weeks left, a 250, a 500, and then a 1,000 week, I think we're going to see Medvedev in the tour finals. I think the same could be said for Rublev. I think that last spot is going to come down to Felix, Fritz, or Hurkacz, because I think
I don't think
the only way that Medvedev or Rublev will fall down is if Felix and either Taylor or Hurkacz have a really good showing, or just generally any 2 of the 3 have a really good showing, that can project them far enough up into that top 7 to knock the other 2 down. So anything could happen, But I think it's unlikely that Medvedev or Rublev will fall out of that top 7. I think it's going to come down to that race for 7th place.
And I don't know how confident I feel about saying that Norrie or Sinner will sort of clinch any severe point
I agree.
thing.
I
mean, they're very talented players. Don't get me wrong.
If I'm being honest with Hurkacz, I don't see him winning the whole title.
Yeah.
With him, what I see from him, if you look at his trajectory, and most of the time when he plays tournaments, he's known for deep runs and then falling to a really good player because his ranking is not high enough that will easily make him go as far as possible. He's gonna run. If I'm looking at my honestly expectation for the Paris draw for him, in that the quarter semifinal, he's going to run into a Tsitsipas, a Medvedev, a Rublev, a Djokovic that's going to stop him in his tracks. But I think that's honestly a prediction for him. He's going to make a quarterfinal, semifinal appearance that, depending on how Felix and Fritz do, that could potentially move him into the top 7 if the other two have a weak enough performance. Because 500 points for that runner-up position is enough to take him into the 7th place position. So, you never know.
Yeah.
I think it's too far gone for Norrie, Carreño Busta, or Sinner to make it, because I think for them, they'd probably need to win the whole thing, or they need to do consistently well over the next 3 weeks to really throw them into that top 7.
Yeah, I just don't think that they have it in them at this point in the tour.
But I think it's going to come down to whoever of the 3 of them has the best showing. That's really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. It is completely possible, though, for Medvedev or Rublev to not be there, and that's why they don't have that green check mark next to them. Exactly. So you never know what's going to happen.
I really wish that the WTA website had the little green check marks. That would make our lives a lot easier.
But on the women's side,
yes,
to that point, Iga and Ons still there. Jessie Pegula and Coco Gauff bring up 3rd and 4th.
They're going.
There's genuinely reason why there's so much uncertainty is because if you look between Jessie Pegula's 32 in points and let's say Sakari at 10th place, that's 25-37. That 1,000 coming up in Guadalajara can change everything.
That's very true, though. Yeah.
If you look down to 9th place, because Simone Halep is retired for the season, Kudermetova 26.06. That's why Iga and Ons are already done, because even that 1,500 points is not enough to knock Ons down. That's the point. And even if Ons gets knocked down that one position, that's still her spot in the finals.
Exactly.
So I'm surprised in a way that Pegula has not been confirmed, but even Belinda Bencic in 11th with 23.60 with a 1,000 could knock Pegula down. But
I still have the confidence, though, that Pegula and Gauff are gonna continue. I think remain in sort of the top 8 for
absolutely.
The finals. I think it's just a matter of
I was gonna say, let me ask you,
who else?
Who do you think is gonna qualify, and who do you think is just gonna miss it out?
That's a good question.
I think Pegula and Gauff are gonna make it. I think so. Caroline Garcia has a really good shot, depending on how she does in these coming up tournaments.
Yeah.
I like the odds of Daria Kasatkina.
I don't know how I feel about Sabalenka, but maybe.
Yeah. Barbora Krejcikova is also making a good run for it. I don't know if it's possible mathematically for her to make it. It'd be interesting if she made that final push.
Beatrice Hadid Maya going into 8.
You never know what can happen.
You never know.
I think, I don't know, it's very interesting when you look at the WTA Tour and the opportunities that they have. Like, that, again, it always comes down to that last 1,000 tournament before the end of the year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And because those 1,000 points can do so much damage.
Right. That'll put you into the
depending on where you are, right. It'll push you into that top 8, which is enough. Mm-hmm. I think
I am so excited for those 1,000 games. Not just because that'll give us a lot of really awesome content to talk about, but also just from the standpoint of I can imagine that it's going to be a very high-fire competitive arena for anyone trying to slide into the top 8 for the tour finals.
Oh, for sure. And I think. I think that top 5 is definitely going to make it in with Pegula, Gauff, and Garcia. It's going to be hard to knock down Caroline Garcia, especially after the amazing year that she's had. But I think what's going to be really interesting to me is who takes those last 3 spots, because genuinely, you never know.
Yeah.
It feels like it could be anyone, which is really nice to have that, a little bit further down, despite how dominant Iga's been, that there's still some relative, uncertainty to the rest of the field. So I have high hopes for this tour finals, knowing that Iga's up against Ons and Coco Gauff and Pegula, who I think are going to be her main 3 rivals of if anyone can take her down. But I'm really excited for these tour finals.
Me too.
They are really promising, especially with the men's side, with the amount of young new guys.
Exactly.
With
Ruud,
Alcaraz and Ruud, like you said, yeah. And
the prospect of Taylor Fritz showing up.
Some new names in that tour finals would be really, really nice. Nice knock on wood. But hopefully when we come back to you guys next week, there'll be some new names up on those boards ready.
Yes, hopefully.
Booking their flights, booking their tickets into the tour finals.
Next week we have some more, 250s lined up. It's going to be 2 weeks before the next men's 500, and obviously there's the women's 1,000.
And just looking at this alone, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
You look at Antwerp and you look at, I believe Naples is the other one. Yeah, Naples. As well as Stockholm, the 3 coming up. You look at who's seeded at these draws. I think when you look at the 4 seeds at Stockholm, it's extremely strong. Tsitsipas, Tiafoe, Shapo, and Cam Norrie. 4 guys that have been doing really well recently that are really promising, could produce some really promising matches.
You also have players like De Minaur waiting to come in. And
Dimitrov and Tommy Paul.
Yes.
All really promising, as well as Holger Rune, which could be really, really interesting to see how much...
Karatsev is down there as well.
Yeah, looking at how much they have the potential to really break in. And as well as you look at Mikkel Ymer, as well as his brother Elias, the Ymer brothers are in force. Mikkel just coming off that semifinal that we watched earlier.
Right, maybe he's feeling good coming into this tournament.
A lot of the tour is going to be momentum. That's what it always comes down to, which is what's really fun to watch, is the staggering momentum. We look to Naples. I see a strong draw, not as strong as the others.
Yeah.
Paolo Carreño Busta at the number 1 with Berrettini at 2, Bautista Agut at 3, Musetti at 4. Some strong names scattered throughout: Kekmanovic, Mackie McDonald, Fucsovics. Some potentials, but I think this one is going to be really up in the air. I think anybody can really break through, but I think Musetti is going to be really strong here. And then we look at our last preview with Antwerp. Really interesting with Hurkacz at number 1. Makes me really happy. Felix at 2, Schwartzman at 3, and Kachanov at 4. With some really, really great names scattered throughout. Wawrinka Gasquet at a first round
Daniel
matchup.
Evans is in there.
Daniel Evans, Rinderknecht after a great performance last week. Sebi Korda as well, a great performance last week. Well, Marcos Giron, Botic Van der
Team is in this tournament.
Dominic Thiem and Jensen Brooksby, both of them are in Hurkacz's quarter, which is really scary for him, as well as Jack Draper and Sarandolo. It's a really strong draw, in my opinion. I
think this is the most interesting by far.
I think it's going to be really interesting what happens. I mean, you look at last week's tournaments and you look at the unpredictableness of what could happen with a seed. Mackie McDonald with his 3-set win over Jensen Brooksby in the first round. Some really unpredictable possibilities. Say that. Looking at Gijon, I mean, who would have known that Thiem would have made it that far? It's great to see, and the same goes for Andy Murray. These guys making deep runs that are coming off of longer breaks, and you don't know how well they're gonna do, but they did pretty good. So hopefully we'll have some more to talk about next week, but
hopefully.
That's all we got for this week. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Yep. Bye-bye.